Bitcoin is back down below 50,000. In fact, it's below 48,000 as I'm recording this podcast just after the U.S. stock market closed on Wednesday. Bitcoin is trading at about 47,800. Not only is it falling against the U.S. dollar, it continues to fall against Ethereum. I pointed out the breakout in the Bitcoin price of Ethereum on my last podcast, and Ethereum continues to gain on Bitcoin even as it is slightly lower against the US dollar. Both currencies are down against the dollar. And I think that trend is going to continue. And I think the trend of Bitcoin falling against Ether is going to continue for some time as well. In fact, if you look at these exchange traded funds, the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, for example, was down another 8% today. It closed at a 16% discount to its net asset value. You know, for all the hype about the institutional interest in Bitcoin, you certainly don't see it in shares of the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. And despite the fact that that trust advertises nonstop on CNBC and other financial outlets, you still have that huge discount. Why isn't all of this advertising resulting in buying? It is. It's just that there's plenty of selling to offset it, because I think the institutional money that got in some time ago wants out. That's why you've got this big discount. So rather than gaining traction with the institutions, which is what all the Bitcoin pumpers are saying, it's actually losing the momentum it once had. And I think the only reason the institutions were there was because it was free money. They were getting issued shares at GBTC at NAV when the shares were trading at a big premium. And so they were able to mark that profit to market instantaneously. But now they're no longer interested in doing it. So the shares are under a lot of pressure. But look at the new Bitcoin futures ETFs. BTF and BITO are the symbols. Those were each down just over 6% today. And they're now down 32% from their highs last month. That's a big drop in under a month. I mean, if Bitcoin is supposed to be this great safe haven, way better than gold, much better store of value, much better inflation hedge, we don't need gold anymore because we got Bitcoin because it's so much safer. It's a much better way to store value. How can it be down 32% in less than a month? I mean, gold is down about 5% in the same time period. That's still a big drop, but it's nothing compared to 32%. In fact, if you look at GBTC, this trust is still down 36% from its high in February. That's 10 months ago. So if Bitcoin is such a great store of value, well, if you try to store your value in the Bitcoin Trust, the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust 10 months ago, you're down 36% over a 10-month period. People keep wanting to talk about how much Bitcoin is up this year. Yes, it had a great January and February, but what has it done since then? It's gone down. This trust is down 36%. Again, gold is down about 5% over the same 10 months. Yeah, 5% is down, but it's down a lot less than 36%. So I don't know how you can hold Bitcoin out as a superior store of value when over the last 10 months, the Grayscale Trust is down 36% and gold is down 5%. Bitcoin itself is down just over 30% from its high that it hit last month as well. But the reason I want to talk about Bitcoin and crypto today is not because the prices are going down. I mean, I expect that to continue. That's nothing new. What I really want to discuss is the congressional hearings that were held yesterday by the House Financial Services Committee. That one is chaired by Democratic Congresswoman Maxine Waters. And they brought together, I think it was 4 or 5, I think they're all CEOs of top crypto companies. And the supposed purpose of the hearings is to figure out how best to regulate these companies to best protect the consumer, right? The government is concerned about protecting the consumer when the consumer is investing in cryptocurrencies or using stable coins. And, you know, the biggest irony, if Congress really wanted to protect the consumer, they would just warn the consumer not to get into any of these cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. because everybody's going to lose all their money speculating in these cryptocurrencies. Now, the stable coins are a little bit of a different animal, and I think they're very different from the fiat cryptocurrencies. But if you go on the internet and listen to this hearing, and it was over 5 hours, complete waste of time as far as I'm concerned, but they basically mixed up stable coins, Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies. So they really were talking about the whole gamut of what's going on in the crypto space. Not too much NFTs. In fact, the subject of NFTs got brought up once or twice, but they really didn't go down that road. But the interesting thing about the hearings is, of course, the way all of these crypto executives are trying to butter up Congress, really to win them over, to get them to be in the Bitcoin camp, to not view Bitcoin as a threat, and to encourage the government to have additional regulation to help make the crypto market safer for the consumer, which of course it's not safe at all for the consumer, because the consumer is going to get wiped out. But one of the ways the congressmen were patting themselves on the back, or congresswomen, was by talking about how they've already helped make the financial services industry so much better and so much safer through the introduction of government programs and regulation. One such program that came up as a big positive was deposit insurance. And I think this came up in the context of discussing stable coins, because one of the guys that was on the panel pointed out that he thought that stable coins were in fact less risky than bank deposits, because banks are loaning out the deposits and they could lose them, whereas the stable coins aren't loaning out anything. That's, of course, provided that they're being honest and they're getting audited. With a cryptocurrency like Tether, and there was nobody from Tether who was at the hearing. And in fact, one of the congressmen pointed that out, and he was upset because I think they wanted to get somebody from Tether to come down there, but nobody volunteered. And it doesn't surprise me, but who knows how much backing is actually there behind each tether. But assuming that the stable coin that is backed by dollars is in fact 100% reserve and all of the dollars are there, then the statement would be correct. It would be less risky than a bank account if the bank is loaning out those deposits, because now you're taking the risk. But of course, Congress pointed out that, hey, we've done something about that because we have these regulations and we have deposit insurance. So we've taken steps to insulate bank depositors from those risks. And they took credit for making the banking system in general more sound and safer from the introduction of deposit insurance. And of course, the opposite is true. The US government made the banking system less safe, less sound as a result of the introduction of deposit insurance. And that's because before there was an FDIC, when it was buyer beware when it comes to bank accounts, consumers who opened up bank accounts, their primary concern was safety. Interest was secondary. Yes, you wanted to earn interest, but you didn't want to lose your principal. So safety was the most important factor. Banks knew this, and so banks prided themselves on how safe they were. They built their reputations around safety. And so you had all of these banks competing for deposits based on which bank was the soundest, which was the safest bank. And the customers were evaluating the banks who were competing on safety, and they were putting their money in the banks that had the best reputations for safety, right? So safety was a primary concern by both parties in the free market. And as a result of all these banks advertising how safe they were and consumers shopping around for the safest banks, we had a safe, sound banking system. In fact, the banking system weathered the Great Depression fantastic. I mean, even though there were some high-profile bank failures, they were few and far between. I think in total, less than 2% of all the bank deposits were lost during the entirety of the Great Depression without any deposit insurance. I mean, think about that, 2%. Americans are going to lose far more than 2% of the value of their bank deposits this year alone due to inflation. And of course, before we had insured bank deposits, when we had sound money and we didn't have any inflation at all because we were on a gold standard, no money was lost due to inflation. In fact, during the years of the Great Depression, bank deposits gained value because prices came down. So even though 2% of the bank deposits were lost, the 98% that weren't lost had a much greater purchasing power than the 100% before the Depression began. So Americans are doing far worse today with their FDIC and insured accounts than they did as bank depositors during the worst economic downturn, right? The Great Depression. They did better back then.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
Do you want to know one thing about crypto? I made over 3,000% in profit in a few weeks. Fact is, the traditional financial system, the traditional money system makes you poor, not rich. If you want to earn $500,000, $1 million, you have to wait until you're 50, 60, 70 in the traditional financial system, and you probably will still be broke. And you will be old. This is not a sexy combination, as you can imagine. But the question is, how can you start in crypto and make these profits? Where to invest? Where to start? My name is Gunnar and I'm from Germany, as you can hear, and things are a little bit different in Germany. More about that later on. Fact is, there are lots of different cryptocurrencies. It's a gigantic universe where beginners and professionals get easily lost. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There are 7 key steps you need to follow to become successful in this market. You have to know them, and if you fail one of them, it's literally impossible to succeed in this market. Just an example, one of the key points is your exchange, and one of the biggest are, for example, Binance and Coinbase. These are trusted and well-established exchanges, but, and this is a big but, you won't find the super profitable coins on those exchanges. The unknown super profitable coins that get gigantic profits are not traded on those kind of exchanges. They are traded on much smaller insider platforms that are barely known. And I can tell you what those super secret exchanges are and why they are so profitable. And another super important thing are the right information sources. The point is, the internet is gigantic. There are hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels, blogs, pages, and much more. And there are also market makers and influencers. For example, Elon Musk, he is not a crypto guy, but the moment he recommended Dogecoin, it went through the roof, to the moon, so to say. But why did he recommend it? Where did he hear it from? He didn't hear it from newspapers. And believe me, he is listening to someone. But you have to know who, and you have to react before he is reacting. This is really important. And these are only 2 of the 7 steps you have to follow in order to be successful in crypto. And if you want to know all of these steps in much more detail, and if you want to have a comprehensive checklist, here's what you should do. There is a link below this video. Click on this link and you will get the opportunity to subscribe to my channel. Click on the link and you will see a video where I explain the next steps. So see you soon. Click on the link now. I'll see you there.